Let's give credit to your textbook authors for trying, really trying, to be up to date on the kinds of electronic research that people are doing these days, but it's an impossible task. The world is moving too quickly. The kinds of research that people do has changed completely in the 20 years that I've been teaching writing, and it is now primarily something that is accomplished at a computer, not at the library. What I'd like to do in this podcast is look through screen captures. I'm going to go to some of the major resources that we have available to us at Newman University and some of the other major resources that we have available generally through the internet and show you a few tricks and tools and ways to find relevant and valuable information as you do secondary research. And then in the final podcast for this unit, we're going to look at conducting original primary research through interviews and surveys and other ways to directly get information from people. Before we get started, I want to just define some key terms. When we talk about research, research is either primary or secondary. Primary research is new information, things that nobody has ever gathered before. This can include social science types of research, such as surveys or interviews or observations that you do to see what public opinion is or what people are thinking or how people are feeling. It also includes, in historical research, texts written by the subjects of the historical research. So if Napoleon wrote a diary, or one of his soldiers wrote a diary about what it was like to be in the Napoleonic Wars, that's primary research. Secondary research is research that other people conduct that you access. So it is the analysis of Napoleon's diaries, it is the analysis of various surveys or observations. It's almost anything that you do in the library and almost anything you do online is secondary research. So I'm going to disappear for a minute and you're just going to hear my disembodied voice going over some of the major avenues for secondary research that are available to you generally on the internet. And also we're going to start with those avenues that are available specifically through the Newman University Library, through the proprietary databases to which we subscribe. Okay, so let's begin just where you will begin almost anything you do with Newman University, and that is on the Newman University main page. You click on My NU, you go to the Student Quick Links, and you click on the Dugan Library site, and here are all of the different resources that you can access electronically through the Dugan Library. Click on Databases, and it may, if you aren't logged in, it may ask you to log in at this point. And then you have all of the various premium database, and premium just means things that we pay for, that are yours to use for free because you are a student at Newman University. Let's start with EBSCOhost. I'm guessing you've used EBSCOhost in some of your classes before. EBSCOhost is one of the nation's largest collection of full-text databases. And this means that it has just thousands and thousands of journals. And you can subscribe to different EBSCOhost packages. We've subscribed to a very large package of journals that have the full text indexed, fully indexed for journals in a whole bunch of different fields. So you click on this, and the journal package that you're probably going to be most interested in is the Business Source Premier. I would also always recommend that you use the Academic Search Premier, which is a general database. And then if you're looking at different topics, if you're looking at psychology, you'll want to look at PsycInfo and Psych articles. If you're looking at literature, you're going to want to look at the Modern Language Association or the MLA Directory of Periodicals. But to try to keep the search narrow, we'll just look in these two databases. We'll click Continue, and then it will ask us to enter a search term. And you enter, let's say we want to learn about international business in Egypt. We'll type in international business in Egypt. And we'll search. And there we have a variety of articles, 6 of them talking about the economic situation and the role of international business in Egypt, and we have the full text, which we can either print off, or you can email it to yourself, or you can download it into a citation database, or do just about anything you need to do with it. EBSCOhost is very easy to use. It's very friendly for combining database searches, and it's very powerful. You probably have access to 12 or 13,000 different journals, all of their text, all of their contents, by going through EBSCOhost. Another very common and very useful database is the LexisNexis database, and this began as information for lawyers, and it had all of the law journals indexed. But now they index news sources. So this is where you're going to get Time and Newsweek and the New York Times and the London Times and the Manchester Guardian and all of the major newspaper sources and popular magazine sources that you used to have to go to a library and look at for years and years and years to find just about anything. If you just want to go to major world publications, that will be the basic news sources, but you can also limit it by newspapers, magazines, wire services, broadcast transcripts, or blogs. I'm going to, once again, look at business in Egypt and see what they give me. We are waiting. There we go. And there you have a variety of articles about doing business in Egypt. LexisNexis will give you the popular press articles. EBSCOhost will give you academic journal articles. So it's going to be very little overlap, because the popular press does not usually use the business research or the scholarly research. Here you have 997 articles, which just shows that that newspapers are much more interested in business in Egypt than scholarly journals are. Those between them will probably be the two largest databases you use. You also have access to these very special databases, the Chronicle of Higher Education and the Chronicle of Philanthropy. These are the journals that I use every day in my job. They have to do with what's going on in education and what's going on in fundraising. The Oxford Biblical Studies Online is a very powerful database that we subscribe to for our theology students. And then the state of Kansas subscribes to a variety of databases that all schools in Kansas, K through 12 or higher ed, have access to these different databases through their libraries. The database articles can be very useful. You're also probably going to get more than you need. So you have to learn how to read abstracts, read small, short descriptions of the articles in order to find exactly what you want. But when you do this, you have access to the scholarly literature that used to only be found in a university library. Even 10 years ago, you had to have access to a university library to get all of this information. Now you have access to it absolutely for free and just with a few clicks of the mouse. Now, I'm not going to insult your intelligence and teach you how to use Google. I'm going to assume that you, like my son when he was 5 and my daughter when she was 3, were perfectly confident in typing a word into a search engine, in going to Wikipedia, in using very basic standard web resources. A few things that I would like to show you, sites that you may not be familiar with that might be useful in some of the research you're doing for this class and other classes, and just a very few sites that have a lot on them. I would recommend, if you're ever doing research about a country, any country in the world, you go to the CIA's page. The government maintains a lot of very good websites, a lot of very good information. The CIA World Fact Book will give you key descriptions of every country in the world and what we know about those countries, and will give you as much information as you need. Let's stick with Egypt for most basic uses, most basic research uses about those countries. You may also want to check out the Statistical Abstracts of the United States. This is run by the U.S. Census Bureau, and it includes every statistic that the government keeps through the census on everybody all the way back to the beginning of time, or at least the keeping of data. These are the various categories of information you have. You are probably most interested in business, and you get all of the statistics, and you can get them in PDF or Excel about business that are official statistics. When you want to know officially any statistic about business or government or anything else in the United States, you can just get it already pre-built in an Excel spreadsheet for you or in a PDF file through the Census Bureau. I often like to check out this site, pollingreport.com, which is just a big warehouse for all of the public opinion polls that people do. If you want to know what people think about something, whatever it is, do you think here unions are still necessary to protect the workers, or are unions unnecessary these days? This is the poll figure for that. And you just look down here, you've got gazillions of different polls about almost any topic you can think of. This is the site you want to use when you want to show what the American people think about something. You might also want to check out this government site here. This is the Library of Congress's virtual reference shelf. Here we have the virtual reference shelf. This is what the U.S. Library of Congress has selected as the major reference sites for almost every topic that you can think of on the web. So if you want to look at business sites, here you have a variety of what the Library of Congress considers top-notch subject guides. These are just a few big sites that contain a lot of information or pointers, directions to other sites. The internet is a big place. There are billions and billions of pages of information on the internet. You have all of that at your fingertips, and that's a wonderful thing. Sometimes it's a little bit of a problematic thing, though, and that's what we're going to talk about next. I'm going to ask you to fill out a web page evaluation form, which I will link to from the assignment section of Blackboard, for every internet or electronic database source that you use for your final report assignment, which is due on the 30th. This is going to ask you a series of questions that I'm going to go over right now. First, it will ask you, is the page you're looking at primary or secondary data? Is it original research, or is it research that is reporting somebody else's research? Who is the intended audience of the site? What is the purpose of the site? You should recognize these from the PIBOK method, trying to figure out what's being said and to whom it's being said. Who is the author of the site or the institution that has sponsored the site? Because it makes a difference if this is a government agency, a university, a special interest group. Is it something that is neutral, or is it something that is put out by people with a vested interest in how you view the subject matter? I will also ask you if there are signs in this page of high quality research. By this, I usually mean, are there other sources cited? Are they quality sources? Are they academic sources or legitimate sources? Do they give source citations or links to where you can find this other research? Or does it just seem to reference things that it never gets around to actually telling you about? Was the site published under a professional or a peer review? This means, does the site say, or is there any evidence that it was reviewed by somebody else before it was put up? And it will usually say so right there on the first page if this was reviewed before it was put up. How old is the information? The internet has been around since the late 80s, and a lot of the information out there is outdated by now. And if you're looking at the geography of Egypt, then whether or not it's old, 20 or so years old, doesn't matter. If you're looking at the politics of Egypt, it matters quite a bit, since they just changed a couple of weeks ago. Is the coverage of the topic in depth? Is there an extensive treatment of what it's covering? Does it have a number of sub-sites or links to other areas? Or is it just an encyclopedia-like, a Wikipedia-like overview of the situation? Is the information well written or well presented? And this will be your judgment call. But usually you can tell if a site is amateurish if the writing is bad. And finally, give your overall evaluation of the usefulness of this site for academic research. This is an exercise that I'm going to ask each of you to go through because, as a very famous cartoon in the New Yorker in 1993 tells us, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog.